So as I mentioned in my introduction, every student needs to have some type of plan after high school. So whether that's attending a 2-year college, a 4-year college, joining the military, going straight to the workforce, going to a trade or vocational school, we just need to make sure we have a plan for your student, whatever that looks like. I always tell them they can't, as we learned from COVID, just sitting on our butts and doing nothing and twiddling our thumbs. It's not fun. We need to make sure we have a plan and that we're doing something after graduation. And I'm here to help them in that process. So with that said, this presentation is talking about the college application process. So I am going to be specifically focusing on the college application. With that said, I will have a parent university in February for those students maybe who are not interested in going to a 2 or a 4-year college and would like to pursue an additional pathway. I will have plenty, in the meantime, I have plenty other resources for those students, but I will have a presentation specifically for those students and parents in February. So I just want you to know that college is not the only option, but that is what I'm going to be discussing today. Okay, so supporting your senior during this season of life. So I know the majority of the parents in this meeting are parents to seniors. We do have some underclassmen parents, and I'm grateful you're here to learn about the process as well. But I'm specifically talking to my senior parents this year. So please make sure that you're being patient with your students as they go through this process. It is, like I said, pretty daunting. There's a lot of different steps and due dates and just things to be aware of. So make sure you're being patient in the process. And then really what I think is the most important is empowering your student to take charge of their future. This is their future. As much as we want to influence and help them become the best student, person, worker, whatever that looks like for them, it is their future. So we need to be supportive of that. So take a back seat. I want you to know about the application process, but take a back seat during this process. They need to learn to take responsibility. They are 17, 18-year-olds. They're about to, in college, they're not going to be able to call you like they did in high school. So they need to learn how to take responsibility starting now. So one thing that you do need to talk about with your student is you need to talk about who's going to pay for college. College is not cheap. Whether that's going to a 2 or a 4-year college, you need to make sure that they understand that it is a financial responsibility to attend college. Okay, so helping your student understand what student loans look like, grants, which is free money you don't have to pay back, scholarships, whatever it might be, that conversation needs to be had, because I do have students who have unrealistic expectations about what they think they can afford. And you can go to anywhere, you can get student loans, but ultimately we don't want our students to graduate college with 100+ in student loans. So that's not our goal. And then also helping complete the FAFSA. I'm going to talk about FAFSA later on in this presentation, but the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it is actually required for graduation this year. So all students who are graduating will be required to do that. Again, I'll talk more about that, but making sure that you're helping complete that FAFSA in a timely manner. And then listen, just listen to their hopes, dreams, and their goals for their life and their future. But also, a little asterisk, make sure that they are realistic about those goals and expectations out of life too. We want them to be hopeful and excited about their future, but we also want them to kind of put them on level ground a little bit as they are looking at the colleges they want to attend. And also, I forgot to say at the end of this presentation, we'll have about 20 minutes for any questions. So if you want, you can just write down some questions as I'm going about, and then you can answer them at the end. Alrighty, so today, here is the quick overview of what I'm going to be discussing. The college application really looks like 4 different steps. The first one is submitting a college application. That includes submitting your college essays and then paying the application fee or submitting a fee waiver. Step number 2 is requesting and sending those official transcripts. Step number 3 is sending test scores, ACT and SAT or TSI. And then step number 4 is letters of recommendations. And then, of course, resumes and other recommended or optional documents. So the first step before students can really do anything is they need to decide on which colleges they would like to apply to. As a senior, they should have a list of colleges, but I know some don't. So I would encourage them to go ahead and start that process now. So how to know which school is right for you. Number 1 is to visit the college. I know that that might not be possible right now, although lots of colleges are opening up those college tours and campus visits, so please take advantage of those, especially the ones that are close to home if you can. But a lot of colleges are now offering virtual visits. And then, of course, the on campus, we have our virtual visits on campus during 3rd period now, and I'll talk about that in a second. But students can research colleges online. They can utilize NAVIANCE to research colleges. We have a great tool called Supermatch. Talk to current students who are attending colleges that your student might be interested in. Research different financial opportunities. So just a little caveat, smaller out-of-state private colleges, they tend to offer more scholarship money and more need-based financial scholarships. So students can keep that in the back of their head as well. So that is the first step to anything. And going back just a little bit, Dulles High School is now offering, I don't know if y'all remember, but a couple years ago, before COVID, we used to have colleges visit during lunchtime. They would set up a booth during lunchtime. Unfortunately, we are unable to have colleges come visit during lunch. So now we have set up college visits during 3rd period. It is a virtual college visit, and students do have to sign up on NAVIANCE to come to that meeting. But there's several colleges that are signed up. We have Texas A&M next Tuesday, so if your student's interested in A&M, make sure they're signing up, and we would love to have them. And then the next one, we also usually have an in-person Fort Bend ISD college fair with TACRO, but unfortunately it has now been moved to virtual, and it's on I think Thursday's wrong, but it's October 16th. I think it's a Saturday, October 16th at 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. And I'm going to send information out to all students about that virtual college fair. So NAVIANCE, you've probably heard your students talk about NAVIANCE, but it is so incredibly important when it comes to the college application. So a big part of NAVIANCE is not only just, oh, sorry, make sure you're muting yourself. So like I was saying, NAVIANCE, a big part of that is sending, official, thank you so much. Saturday is, thank you. I don't know why I put Thursday on that, but thank you so much. Yes, October 16th is a Saturday. Anyways, NAVIANCE. So NAVIANCE is used for a couple different things. It's not only used for college and career research, but it's also used to send official transcripts and to send teacher letters of recommendations. And I'll talk about that in a little bit in my presentation, but that's the 2 most important things that NAVIANCE is utilized. It's also utilized for me for student tracking when it comes to college applications, to see where students are interested in going. It's used for college visits. There's so many amazing tools that NAVIANCE can be used for, so please make sure you're sitting down with your student and going through their NAVIANCE account. It's very easy. Students will log in using their Fort Bend ISD email address and password by logging in through OneLink, and it's actually an app within their OneLink account that they can access. And so, like I said earlier, it's all things college application can be found in there. Most importantly, that transcript request and letters of recommendations. Okay. And if you have any questions about that, like I said, I am going to send this PowerPoint out to everyone who's here. So please make sure that you review this PowerPoint, because you can then click on the video and actually watch this video back. This is an entire NAVIANCE overview for students. It goes through every last detail about NAVIANCE. So it goes through how to log in, how to use Supermatch, how to research colleges and careers and take career assessments. It also walks you through how to request transcripts and letters of recommendations, updating your email address, all that good stuff. So make sure you're taking some time to watch that video. It can also be found on my website, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation as well. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about the steps to completing the college application. So step number 1 is to complete a college application. Students cannot do anything else until they have hit submit on that college application. So let's talk about it. So there's a couple of different application websites that your students may use. These are the top 3 that students will typically use. The first being Go Apply Texas. So in the past, it was applytexas.org, but they have actually moved their application portal. It's a brand new application system. It's great. It's easier to use. So I'm really excited about it. But students need to know that they cannot apply using the old application site. So what I mean by that is if your student has applied to HCC for dual credit purposes, they might say, well, I already have an account. Well, they'll need to make a new account with the Go Apply Texas. So make sure they're doing that. The Go Apply Texas application is used for all Texas public and most of your Texas private universities. This should be every student's first stop when it comes to applications, because I know most of our students are going to be using Apply Texas because most of our students are applying to those Texas universities. So this should be the first stop for those applications. After that, our most common application site is the Common App. And this is actually, I love the Common App. I think it's a great website or college application website. So we have nearly 900 colleges that are now using it. A couple years ago, when I was doing this presentation, there was only 700. And we now have 20 Texas universities that are using the Common App, whereas, again, just a couple years ago, it was only 12 colleges. So if you are applying to some Texas schools and the application is on Common App, as well as some out-of-state schools, you can utilize the Common App as well. I just encourage you to first use that Apply Texas, and then if you need to use the Common App, you can as well. So the Common App is typically going to be used for any of your out-of-state colleges. So these are colleges that are not in Texas, and will also be used for your more prestigious campuses. So Rice University, for example, is a college that's in Texas, but is a private and prestigious campus, and they utilize the Common App. Okay. The next application site is the Coalition for College Access. So the Coalition application, it's just another one. Back when I was doing this a couple years ago, there was only about 80 colleges, and there's now 135. And University of Florida only uses the Coalition. I don't have too many students that use the Coalition, but it is available for students. Okay, and then another common one that's not on this PowerPoint, if a student is applying to University of California schools or UC schools, they're going to use the UC system. So just keep that in the back of your head. And then, of course, university websites. There are some colleges, mostly private campuses, that will allow students to apply through the university website themselves. I recommend students not doing that unless that's the only way to apply to that school. I really recommend students utilizing an application website such as Apply Texas or Common App. And then when you do have access to this PowerPoint, you can actually click on the links and navigate to those specific sites. So moving on from there, you need to make sure that your student is completing college admissions research. And this little chart right here is something that I created, and students have access to it on my website, but it will just help them conduct that college application research. And so basically, this is just finding out, where do I apply? Which application do I use? What are some due dates? Do they require an SAT or ACT? When should I submit my transcript? What is the minimum GPA requirement or rank requirement? So this is just kind of a one-stop shop to make sure you have everything ready for when you're submitting your applications. You know, does the college require an essay? Does the college require letters of recommendations? If so, what are the teachers that I need to ask for those? Okay, so as they're doing this, back when I was talking about choosing a college, I recommend these lists to include at least 3 safety schools. So these are schools that you're going to be automatically admitted to. And I'll talk about automatic admissions later on in the presentation, but these are going to be like your top 10%, top 6% for UT. It will also be like your 2-year universities, which are automatic admissions, and then also the schools that are automatic admit based off of GPA and testing scores. 3 target schools, so maybe these aren't automatic admit schools, but based on previous students, you kind of fall in that range. So you are likely to be accepted based off of previous students. And then 2 reach schools or 2 dream schools. So these are schools that maybe you're not likely of getting accepted to, but you would love the opportunity of being accepted. And I have seen students be accepted to their dream schools when they weren't a likely candidate. So I encourage them to do so. And so the next question you could ask yourself is, what application site are the majority of your schools on? So as I was showing in the previous website, or the previous slide, I'm sorry, there is a list of college websites that you can use. I would use the one that the majority of your college is on. So by conducting the college admissions research, you'll know which application sites they use. Okay. All right, so deadlines are so important. So applications are open now. Some colleges opened on July 1st and some opened up on August 1st. Please note that the deadlines will vary for every college. I have given some generic deadlines that most public universities or some private universities will follow. So most Texas public university application deadlines are not until the very early spring or late summer. So actually, we do have some colleges in Texas that their application deadline is not until August 1st, 2022. We do not want our students to wait until then, but just note that there are some schools that have longer deadlines like that. So they're typically between March and June. We also have some early decision deadlines that fall between October 15th and November 1st. November 1st is usually that early action, priority, or priority scholarship deadline. December 1st is a generic regular decision deadline. So UT, A&M, that is their deadline. January 3rd through the 15th.
Do you not know these?
Oh, sorry, I'm going to mute you. So January 3rd through the 15th is usually that early decision 2 deadline or another regular decision. And typically the January 3rd to the 15th regular decision deadlines are going to be maybe your out-of-state schools. Most of the Texas public schools are either December 1st or after January. And then March 1st is another regular decision deadline. And then again, June 1st is another regular decision deadline. Or you might have heard of rolling admissions. So rolling admissions simply just means that they are reviewing applications as they have received them. Most rolling admissions campuses, their deadline for the fall 2022 is going to be August 1st. Again, we do not want our students waiting until August 1st to apply, but that is an option if they've waited till the last minute. Okay, so let me just briefly discuss the different types of deadlines. So early action or priority deadlines are very similar. This just means that you really are interested in the school. It's one of your top choices. You're interested in applying early. That way you will get an admissions decision early. I encourage students to do this. I encourage all students to apply early or priority because number one, scholarship opportunities go up. Admissions typically goes up too because those spots do fill up for specific majors such as business, engineering, computer science. So I do encourage students to apply early if possible. Please note that early action is available. You might hear that for any of your Common App schools. So those are like out-of-state schools or your private and prestigious campuses. Priority deadlines are going to be for most of your Texas public schools. And then you all might have heard of early decision. This means that the D stands for done. So you can only early decision to one campus. Early decision is only available for those out-of-state or private and prestigious campuses. Texas public student early decision, there is a benefit to it. So I'm going to use Rice as an example. If you are very interested in going to Rice, if that is your #1 school on your list, I encourage you to apply early decision. The reason is because the application pool is going to be a lot smaller. You are only going to be competing for the early decision spots. So I encourage you to apply to at least one early decision if you're applying to an out-of-state or a more prestigious campus. If you have any questions about that, you can always email me and I can explain it a little bit further. But please note that it is a binding contract, that it means your parents, you, and your counselor will sign it. And if you get accepted, you will go. So you need to make sure before you're doing early decision that you can also financially afford it, because they are expecting you to have done that research, and they are expecting you that if you were accepted that you go. I will say if you are accepted early decision, you will likely get some type of merit-based scholarships, okay? And so lastly, these are just a few reminders. If you have not completed the college admissions test, like the SAT or ACT, you should still submit your applications now. You will have time to submit those scores later, but I still encourage you to go ahead and start submitting those applications. Okay, and then this is the most important one. Applications are not reviewed until all required documents are submitted, including an official transcript. So when you hit submit on your applications, it does not mean you're done. Okay, you have a couple of other steps after that before your application will be reviewed. And I have some horror stories of students who have, thought that their application, was submitted by the deadline and they thought they were going to get accepted, but their application wasn't even reviewed because they didn't submit the additional items that were needed. So make sure that you are submitting your application early. That way we can ensure all documents are submitted by the deadline. Okay, so with that said, I think it's on the next slide, or in a future, but I'm going to go ahead and say it just in case. With that said, so when you're applying to a school and the deadline is December 1st, that is not the deadline to submit an application. That is the deadline to get everything submitted. So your transcripts, your SATs, your ACTs, your letters of recommendations. So I really encourage students to apply at minimum 2 weeks before the deadline. That way they have a 2-week kind of leeway to get all additional items in, okay? Alrighty, so college essays. If you did not know, college essays are not always required for school. For example, University of Houston, they do not require an essay. So make sure that you're researching to see if the college actually requires an essay. So start writing those essays early. I know that in your English classes, you might have already started the college process. For students to write a rough draft, write it like a journal entry, do a little brain dump, whatever it might be. First, just get your thoughts out on paper, and then from there you construct a well-written paper, having a beginning, middle, and an end. Making sure that the essay is conversational, it's easy to read, keeping in mind that the admissions rep is reading anywhere from 1,000 essays to 5,000 essays. So just making sure that you're keeping on topic, that it's concise, and like I said earlier, conversational, like you're sitting across the room from that admissions rep, you're telling your story, okay? I would encourage you to have at least 2 to 3 people review, revise, and edit, family, friends, English teachers, whoever that might be. Like I said earlier, essays are not always required, so please make sure you're determining whether or not it is before writing that essay for that college. There is a separate essays tab in the Go Apply Texas application, so you will be submitting your applications along with your application, or I'm sorry, your application essays along with your application, okay? Once you have finalized, you will upload these essays to the specific essay section. There will sometimes be some additional supplemental essay questions that are asked, and those will also be submitted through the application itself. So not all colleges ask those questions, but I know UT does. You can always look up those questions on the university website as well. Alrighty. So hitting the submit button, so actually being ready to hit the button. So make sure you are reviewing all items within your application. Remember, within your application, you're going to be giving some personal information, so your address, first and last name, social security number, some parent information. Along with that, you will then be answering some university-specific questions. Along with that, you'll be submitting essays potentially, and then along with that, you will be paying your fee. So yes, to apply to college, most of the time there is a fee. Paying the application fee, there are some colleges within Texas that do not require a fee to submit an application. So a lot of your private campuses, so for example, Baylor, HBU, St. Thomas, they're not going to have application fees because they are private campuses. All two-year colleges are free, so HCC, Wharton, those are all going to be free applications. San Jack, Blinn, all free applications. The application fees do range anywhere from $25 to $75, so it is a wide range, but so be prepared when you're making that list. It is a financial commitment to apply to a college. Okay. We do have application fee waivers, and those are available to students who are on free and reduced lunch. So if you are on free and reduced lunch, you can gain access to those through either have taken an SAT or an ACT. You'll actually gain access through your College Board account or through your ACT student account. And then additionally, you can receive application fee waivers from me. So if you have any questions about that, please make sure you're emailing me. And then, of course, I can help you submit those as well. So it is your job to submit those. You will either submit them through the university website. Like after you apply, you'll get a student portal. You'll submit them through there. You'll submit them through email. Sometimes they need to be mailed, and sometimes they won't even ask for them. So, for example, Texas A&M, if you submit an application and indicate that you're going to need a fee waiver, they will actually review it. And most of the time you won't have to send a fee waiver at all. So again, if you need help with that, I'm more than happy to walk you through the process. So I guess I just already mentioned this, but these are the types of fee waivers. So again, you must be on the free and reduced lunch program. You can still sign up for that if you believe you qualify. You get, there's a couple of different ones, so you can get 2 SAT fee waivers to take the SAT. Along with that, you will get those after you have taken the exam, you will get those application fee waivers. Same thing for ACT. And then, like I said earlier, you can get an application fee waiver from me. It is the NACAC fee waiver, and you can just email me and I can send that to you. I do also have a College Board one that I can send to you as well. I can verify that you're on that free and reduced lunch, and I can send that over to you. No issues at all with that. It's not very hard for me. Okay, so stop, you're not done. I do realize it's 6:30. I'm sorry, it's a lot of information. I'm trying not to overwhelm you, but I do want to make sure you get all the information. So the next step after you have submitted your college application is step 2 is to request those official transcripts. So I know a lot of colleges are moving to test optional because of COVID, but you will always need to request an official transcript. So this will always be a part of your application process. So really quick, official transcripts must be requested in NAVIANCE. Okay, you can find specific instructions on my website. On this PowerPoint, the next slide is going to be a video. Your students received a college application handbook. Well, actually, they received their little QR code to have access to that, but that is also on my website. And then, of course, my monthly newsletter. And then you can always email me and I can send you instructions on how to do it. But they all must be requested through NAVIANCE. So with that said, Apply Texas Coalition and University website applications, these official transcript requests are sent through a system called TREX. It's all done electronically, and these transcripts are submitted by the registrar. So any transcripts that are not Common App are going to be submitted by the registrar, okay? And then the Common application, if you're planning to use the Common App to submit applications, official transcript requests are going to be uploaded by the student's counselor. Okay, with that said, your student will still put the request in through NAVIANCE. So you are always putting request in regardless of how you are applying. Okay, but with that said, if you're applying through the Common App, you'll put the request in through NAVIANCE, and then you will also email the counselor letting them know which colleges you are applying using the Common App, and then your counselor will be notified and they will be able to send your transcripts. So it's very important. Parents, please know that you cannot make these requests. Students are the only ones who can make official transcript requests in NAVIANCE. And again, if you have any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to do it or to help you. Please note that these are always sent electronically. We typically do not send transcripts through mail unless the school specifically requires it. Okay? If you would like to receive an unofficial transcript, you can actually access these now through Skyward under Portfolio. So anytime that you need an unofficial transcript, you can actually download it yourself. And that might be utilized for schools that are using now what's called the self-reported academic record, which basically is allowing students to self-report their grades, GPA, etc. And the unofficial transcript can be used for that. Okay, this is an important date. September 20th is when transcript requests open in NAVIANCE for students to begin requesting. Please note, remember, you have to apply to a college first. Okay, you can't log in on September 20th and begin requesting transcripts for schools that you've never applied to. Okay, so please make sure your students are first applying. Once they have submitted their application, they can then log into NAVIANCE, request their transcript, and then if it's a Common App school, they'll request it through NAVIANCE and then also email their counselor. Okay. Alrighty, so the big question is what's included in your transcript. You're going to have the rank, GPA, courses, and grades. The June transcript that you can see currently includes this is specifically for seniors, by the way, so if you're an underclassman, this will be different, but the June transcript includes your freshman, sophomore, and junior year. The September transcript that's going to run on September 16th and will be available on the 20th includes freshman, sophomore, junior year, and any summer courses. And then, of course, all new students that have made it to Dulles. There will be a January transcript, which will run, I believe, January 15th. That will include freshman, sophomore, junior, and first semester grades from senior year. This transcript is also called the mid-year transcript, and some colleges do require a mid-year transcript to be submitted. So the initial transcript is the September transcript. This is the one that colleges will see during the admissions process. And then on January 15th is when the mid-year will run. Now, little side note, students can wait to submit their transcript. And I say this with a little asterisk because a student can wait to send a transcript only if the deadline is after January 15th. So for example, if a student wants to wait to send their first transcript, but the deadline for an application is December 1st, they cannot do that. They will have to send that initial transcript, the one that is ran in September, in order to be admitted. But I do have some students who, for example, are applying to U of H. Well, the U of H deadline is not until June. They go ahead and apply, and then they want to include that first semester of their senior year. They want the college to see that because they believe that they've done really well, and so they wait to send that first transcript until January. So I know that can be kind of confusing, so if you have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, and then the last transcript. So the last transcript is going to be the final transcript, and this is going to be ran after students have graduated. Final transcripts are required for the student's college that they're planning to attend. So for example, if a student has decided that they are attending Texas Tech University in the fall, they will be required to submit a final transcript to Texas Tech, saying that they have completed all their credits and that they have graduated. Okay, this transcript will be requested through the graduation survey that will be sent to students beginning in April. Okay, there's going to be so much information that goes out about this, so don't worry about it right now. But that final transcript will need to be requested at that time. Okay, so again, when you get this PowerPoint, I would encourage you to go watch how the official transcript requests are submitted through NAVIANCE. So step number 3 is sending SAT and ACT scores to colleges. And there's a little note that says if required. So we're going to talk about test optional. So the types of college admissions testing is the ACT, the ACT, the SAT, and the TSI. Most all four-year colleges or universities will require either an ACT or an SAT. They don't care which one you send, they just want you to send at least one. Okay, now little note to that, you will have probably noticed that a lot of colleges are now doing test optional. Some are going to continue doing that for the future. A lot of schools will continue to do it for the next couple of years, but I know for sure this year they are going to continue with the test optional process. What that means is they are not requiring a student to submit an SAT or an ACT score for admissions purposes. Okay, they might still require the student to submit for TSI purposes, and I'll explain that in a minute. But if it's test optional, they won't require it for admissions. Okay. So TSI, I mentioned that briefly. All Texas public universities require a student to be TSI ready. So the TSI, I should have put earlier, is actually not an admissions test. It is a college course placement exam. So by taking the TSI, you are showcasing to a college that you are ready to take college classes. Okay, you can be exempt from the TSI, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But please make sure that you're researching all test optional options. So if a college is or isn't, and if they are test optional, what is their minimum GPA that they're looking for, etc. So here's some more testing information. Students must indicate whether they have taken or plan to take the SAT or ACT when completing an application. So even if you haven't taken it, you just need to make sure that you provide dates, and that's going to be on the application itself. It's okay to fill in this information even if you're not registered for that exam. You still need to go ahead and put that date in. You're not going to have to submit these scores right away, but I'll explain that process in just a second. Okay, the SAT and ACT is only required for four-year universities, so it is not required for those two-year colleges. So if you have a student who's interested in just going straight to HTC for a semester or for the next 2 years, they do not need to take the SAT or ACT. It's not required. They will just need to make sure that they, if they have taken the SAT or ACT, that they are TSI exempt, or if they haven't taken either one of those tests, that they take the TSI so they can be TSI exempt. So scores are entered into the application. These are not official scores. You must send your official scores to colleges through the SAT or the ACT official website. We do not send scores on your behalf. It is your job to log in to your College Board account or your ACT student account to send those official scores to colleges. You might have already selected to send those scores automatically. A lot of students who have taken the SAT and opted to go ahead and send their scores automatically are worried because now they have decided to be a test optional student, which means that they don't want their test to be reviewed. Well, it's okay. You just need to make sure that you indicate in the application that you are choosing to apply as test optional, which means even if they have your score, they're not going to review it for admissions purposes. Okay. I encourage students to send their scores automatically, but I totally understand not knowing what the score is that you might not want to send it. Just please note that colleges are only going to take the highest score. It doesn't matter how many times you take it. They are only looking at that highest score. So they're not going to judge you for taking it 4 times, and they're just they want to know that you've taken it and that you are improving in your scores, and they will take that highest, like I said. Okay. If you have any questions about test optional, there's actually a link that you can select here, and it will tell you what test optional means. It tells you the benefits of being test optional. I read through this whole article. It's a really great article for those who might not understand what the test optional process looks like, because it is confusing. You want to know the benefits, you want to know the cons, and there's a ton. So I'd encourage you, once you get this PowerPoint, to click on that link and read through that article. Okay, so now you are ready to send your scores to colleges. I kind of mentioned earlier that you can send those scores automatically when you register for your exam, which I encourage you to do. But please note that if a college is not test optional, they are going to require these scores along with, sending that transcript or the letters of recommendations, etc. So make sure that you are sending those scores in a timely manner. Okay. Also, please note that if you have not automatically sent your scores to colleges after taking the SAT, and you've waited to send your scores until after you've received your scores, please note that it does take a minimum of 2 weeks for those scores to be sent to colleges. So once you request the scores within your College Board account, you can expedite them for an additional fee, but it does take about 2 weeks for those scores to be sent. So make sure you're planning ahead of time. And then again, there's some hyperlinks within this PowerPoint that you can click on with instructions on how to send your SAT and ACT scores. So now the big question, TSI. So the TSI is the Texas Success Initiative. And so basically the state of Texas has created this benchmark for students to meet. So it's only required for Texas universities. So if you're going out of state, it's not required. And usually it's only required for public Texas universities. And so basically it's just asking that the student is ready to take college-bearing courses. Okay, and so students can be TSI ready by 3 different things. So they can, number one, they can take the TSI, and we actually offer that for free to all of our seniors in March and in June. They can also take the SAT or the ACT and be exempt from the TSI based off of their SAT or ACT score. So I'm going to show you that chart in just a second. That kind of shows you the TSI exemption scores. Please note that all students must be TSI ready before they can register for college-bearing courses. Okay, so again, they can be TSI ready by taking the TSI or having taken the SAT or ACT and having a high enough score to where it exempts them from taking the TSI. Again, that can be kind of confusing, so just let me know if you have any questions about that. And again, it's not a college admissions test, it's a college placement course test. So these are the exemptions. So if a student makes a composite score of a 23 on the ACT with a 19 within the English and a 19 within the math category, they are TSI exempt, so they're good to go. And then if for the SAT, if they receive a 480 on the English-based reading and writing and a 530 on the math, then they are exempt. There is no combination score for that one. Okay, so take a picture of that or make sure you write that down. Please note that like I said, if a student is choosing to go test optional, so they haven't sent their SAT scores, but they are TSI exempt, they will need to go ahead and send their SAT or ACT scores once they have decided to go to that school. Okay, for example, University of Houston, let's say they've applied as test optional, they will still need to make sure that they send those scores at a later date so that they can take that TSI requirement off their student portal. Okay, and step number 4 is talking about the letters of recommendations, and again, if required. So these are not always required, so please make sure that your student is conducting college research before requesting letters of recommendation. So here are the steps for teacher letters of recommendations. Step number 1 is to make sure that you are researching whether or not letters of recommendations are required for the colleges that you are applying to. Step number 2 is the student needs to talk to that teacher in person. Okay, they need to ask that teacher if they would be willing to write that letter of recommendation. Please note that these take a lot of time. So I use the example, let's say Coach Rose, he has, no joke, he had 30 students ask him for letters of recommendations last year, and that's pretty average for him. Let's say it takes him 1 hour to write a letter of recommendation per student, which that's pretty average for just letters of recommendations. So if a teacher doesn't have time and they say no, move on and ask another teacher. So again, make sure that your student is discussing that with that teacher, and that they are also providing them with a resume so that they can write a well-rounded letter of recommendation. So once the student has asked the teacher has said yes, they've submitted an application, they can go ahead and then start requesting those letters of recommendations within NAVIANCE. So all Dulles High School teachers will submit letters of recommendations through NAVIANCE, regardless how the student is applying. Okay, the only there are some caveats to that. So for example, Texas A&M, they don't receive letters of recommendations through NAVIANCE. They only receive them through their Howdy portal. So again, make sure you're just researching that, if they require them and how they accept them. Most of the time it's NAVIANCE or electronically, which is through NAVIANCE, but there are some unicorn schools such as Texas A&M who likes to do everything different than any other school. So if you have any questions about that, again, I'd love to help you. So again, make sure the student is submitting the application first and then logging into NAVIANCE and putting the request in. Okay. Here is a video that walks students through how to request letters of recommendations through NAVIANCE, and I want to see something. Okay, yes, so I just wanted to make sure there was more information on that. So make sure, again, you're taking time. This can also be found on my website. So this is just some information for teacher letters of recommendation for Apply Texas schools specifically. I'm not going to go too in detail about this, but make sure you are reviewing this when you get some time or when you get this PowerPoint, so you can kind of understand what that looks like within NAVIANCE. So these are for just some frequently asked questions that I get from students about teacher letters of recommendation. So the most often one I get is, if it is a retired teacher, a non-Dulles High School teacher, or another professional? And in that case, you are not going to submit through NAVIANCE. NAVIANCE is only used for Dulles High School teacher letters of recommendations. Okay, so in that case, you will need to research the university guidelines for submitting recommendation letters. So you might need to contact the admissions rep. It's typically going to be requested through the university portal. So if you did not know, after each application that a student submits, the university will send them an email congratulating them on submitting their application, along with their specific university portal login information. They will need to create an account with each university that they apply to, and from there they will be able to submit additional documents within their university portal, such as a letter of recommendation. So typically they can request it through that university portal. The person would then get an email and they can upload, or if they're okay with it, they can upload on their behalf, but it will probably be submitted that way, or through an email. So make sure the student is doing that research as well. So now that we're done with our 4 steps, we have completed an application, we have submitted an official transcript, we've sent our official testing scores, and what is a complete application? So like I said previously when I was talking about deadlines, the deadline listed on the application is not the deadline to hit the submit button. It is the last day to have all of these required pieces of the application submitted. So like I said, it includes the application, your fees, your essays that fall under that application, submitting that fee waiver if needed, sending those official transcripts, test scores, and then letters of recommendation. So that's what makes a complete application. Once everything is submitted, their checklist is good to go, then the university will start reviewing for admissions purposes. So moving on to the latter part of my presentation, I'm now going to quickly talk about paying for college. I will have a couple of separate presentations for parents in regards to FAFSA and in regards to paying for college. So make sure you're looking out for those dates. But FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. Okay, please make sure you're going to the correct website. You should never have to pay to apply. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, so it is a graduation requirement this year. So what that means, if your student is planning on walking the stage, they will have to complete the FAFSA. Okay, so the FAFSA is available on October 1st, 2021, opens every single year on October 1st. The application that your student will be completing is the 2022-2023 FAFSA. Okay, you will use your 2020 tax return when completing the FAFSA. Okay, both students and parents will need an FSA ID to complete the FAFSA. Okay, now note the FAFSA is only available to U.S. citizens and permanent residents. So if you do not fall under that category, you do have some other options. Okay, and as I had mentioned, it's a graduation requirement. So if you don't fall under that, you can either complete the FAFSA or there is an opt-out form. So you do not have to actually submit it. There is an opt-out form. If your student is choosing to opt out of the FAFSA and you do not want your student to complete the FAFSA, that is okay. They will just need to make sure they complete an opt-out form with me. I have to sign it there, and their counselor has to sign it to approve it. That way they can meet that graduation requirement. Okay, so your students are going to receive in-depth instructions on how to complete the FAFSA. Just so you know, the FAFSA is used for student loans. It's used for grants, which is money you don't have to pay back, and it is used for additional need-based scholarships. Colleges will also ask students to complete the FAFSA for academic scholarships as well, and any additional scholarships that they would like to give students. So again, there's going to be a Fort Bend ISD FAFSA meeting that I'm hosting on September 20th, 2021 at 6 o'clock. It's going to be in Teams. We are still working out how we are going to conduct it within Teams. I think we're going to do either a live event or a webinar, but more information will come for that. Again, please note that the application opens up on October 1st, and I like kids, or not kids, but students to submit applications close to October 1st, if not at least by the priority deadline of January 15th. The reason is because it is first come, first serve. Whoever completes it first gets the funds first. And also note that once your student has applied and is accepted to college, they will receive what's called a financial aid package. Within that financial aid package, it will have an estimated cost for tuition and room and board. It will have the grants and student loans that are being offered to your students, as well as potentially scholarships. And then it will have your remaining balance or no remaining balance. So that will be, your students will get that after they have been accepted, and that will be submitted to them by the financial aid office for each specific college that they've applied to. So lastly, paying for college. So there are other ways to pay for college. Please make sure you're visiting my website under scholarships and FAFSA for more information on scholarships. The TASFA, like I said earlier, this is available for non-US citizens, and it is the Texas financial aid. So it's only for students who are not US citizens and they are planning on attending a Texas school. There's also the CSS profile. This is for most of those private campuses, and it is managed through College Board. Please make sure you're submitting that as well if you're planning on attending a private school. University scholarships, so these are either through the Apply Texas application itself or it's through the university website. These are typically merit and need-based scholarships, so make sure you're researching the colleges that you're applying for and the scholarships that they offer. And then, of course, there's third-party scholarships. So these are just a few, but there are some more websites within my website, so make sure you're checking that out as well. So quickly, I know I'm running out of time, but I did want to discuss the automatic admissions within Texas. I do have an automatic admissions chart on my website, so make sure you're accessing that. I know I keep saying my website a lot. That is actually through the Dulles High School webpage. You click on students and parents and then navigate to college and career readiness, and I have tons of information on there. But anyways, students can be automatically admitted to colleges based on their SAT, ACT, GPA, and rank. Students within the top 10% class are automatically accepted to all four-year public universities within Texas, and then UT Austin is actually the top 6%. Okay, please note that just because a student is automatically accepted to a college does not mean that they are automatically accepted to their major of choice. So they are not only applying for the college itself, but they're also applying for their major. Okay, and then all colleges in Texas except for 3 have more than one automatic admission. So make sure that you're looking at, GPA, rank, SAT, ACT scores. Your students could potentially be automatically admitted based on those things as well. Okay, and then one thing to note, private universities do not do automatic admissions. They are what's called holistic. And so I'm going to review that process really quick. Students can be holistically reviewed. So this is for students who do not fall under automatic admissions or for a college that does not have automatic admissions. So basically, the holistic review process is going to look at all aspects of the application. So the application itself, the student's essays, resume, grades, activities, leadership positions, letters of recommendations, all of those things are going to come into play when reviewing the student's application in a holistic review process. Okay. I also really encourage students to reach out to admissions rep, especially the ones who work specifically with our campuses, and I would be more than happy to provide that student with those names. Reach out to those admissions reps. They do keep track of who's reaching out to them, and they will remember that when reviewing your application. Here are some important dates. So like I mentioned earlier, on September 30th, we have our virtual FAFSA night. October 16th, Saturday, October 16th, is the Fort Bend ISD College Night. It's a virtual fair. October 13th is the Senior College Application Workshop. Your students know about this. This is an application workshop for all senior students. They will be applying to a 2-year college at this time, whether that's their Plan A or their Plan B or C or D, whatever it might be. I want them to have that in their back pocket just in case. October 14th is Parent University for How to Pay for College. So I'll be reviewing FAFSA as well as scholarships. October 15th is the goal date to submit applications. I know that's a bit early, but at least by November 1st, I like students to start submitting those applications. October 20th is the ASVAB exam on campus. If your student is interested in taking the ASVAB, they can register with me. And then some future dates, just to remember, April 22nd is going to be the senior walk on campus and panoramic picture. And then April 23rd is our prom, and our prom this year is going to be at the Houston Museum of Natural Science in Sugar Land. It's a beautiful location. I'm very excited about it. And please note that it's only going to be a senior prom. In the past, we have invited juniors to attend, but it's only going to be a senior prom this year. Alrighty, I've come to the end. I know we are fresh out of time, but I will stay for about 10 minutes to answer any questions. Here is my contact information. Like I said, my name is Kaylee Warren. I pride myself on answering emails. So if you email me, I will email you back. It might not be right away, but I do respond to emails. So please email me. You can call me. I'm typically not always in my office, so if you do call me, make sure you leave a message and I'll try to get back to you. But again, the best way to contact me is through email. Of course, please make sure you're visiting my website. I have tons of information on there. My newsletter, it's a monthly newsletter that I update. I say monthly, but I actually update it weekly. If you're a senior parent, I do send out Friday emails. Every single Friday, you and your senior typically will receive an email from me just going over some information for the next week. So I'm going to go ahead and answer any questions you might have.